Before she became one of the most influential ministers for magic the wizarding world had ever seen, the daughter of two ordinary Muggle dentists. A brilliant mind, with a genius for logic and an unbending sense of justice, and yet born to a family without a single drop of magic in it. In this episode, we follow the long and extraordinary life of the brightest witch of her age.
She's a nightmare, honestly.
Hermione Granger.
I think she heard you.
Ah, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs. Before some long-nosed busybody at the ministry catches the scent of this precious and entirely legal possession of mine, allow me to offer you all a completely free piece of advice. Never toy with a time-turner. Misuse one, and before you know it, you may attend the same history of magic lesson 3 times in a single morning. A fate I would not wish upon my worst enemy. For sure, if there is anyone capable of surviving such academic torment under Professor Binns, it would certainly be Hermione Granger. Indeed, today we speak of one of the most brilliant witches of the modern age. A girl with an insatiable hunger for knowledge, whose journey began in an ordinary Muggle household. Raised by 2 dentists, a surprisingly lucrative profession among Muggles, it would seem. I can only assume it's due to all that metal machinery you insist on chaining to your gums. Am I correct? Yet, from the moment Minerva McGonagall placed that letter into her hands, Hermione's life changed forever. At Hogwarts, she became a wise witch, a key figure in the Second Wizarding War, and later one of the most influential voices within the Ministry of Magic itself. Though not every one of her ideas was met with roaring success. The Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare? Spew? My dear Miss Granger, surely there was a better name available. Lights, music, magic. If you enjoy our journeys through the wizarding world and wish to support this project, there is something very simple you can do. Leave a like and subscribe to the Spellbook Chronicles. For you, it costs nothing. For us, it truly makes all the difference. Dumbledore never had to worry about the algorithm. Thank you from the bottom of our wizarding hearts.
On the 19th of September, in the last warm days before autumn took hold of southern England, a girl was born to 2 people who had no inkling of what she truly was. They were dentists, the both of them. Careful, gentle, unremarkable in the way that decent people often are, with a tidy practice, a tidy house, and a quiet conviction that the world made sense if you only looked after your teeth and read good books in the evenings. They were the sort of parents who chose a daughter's name not from fashion, but for the weight of meaning a name can carry. They had been reading William Shakespeare, counted in the Muggle world among the greatest storytellers who ever lived, and the subject, in certain corners of the Wizarding One, of a stubborn old rumor that Shakespeare was no Muggle at all, but a guise worn by Beadle the Bard himself, whose tales were treasured in both worlds. Whether there is any truth in it, no one can say, but it makes a fascinating theory. However that may be, it was in one of his plays, The Winter's Tale, that Mr. and Mrs. Granger found, without yet knowing it, the name they had long been seeking, Hermione.
Hermione.
In the play, she is a queen, wrongly accused, who endures the cruelty of a jealous king, is believed dead for 16 long years, and returns in the final act disguised as a statue of cold white stone, only to step down from the pedestal, warm and breathing, and forgive. A woman turned to stone and brought back to life. It is one of the strangest and loveliest redemptions in all of English literature. The Grangers chose it, they would later say, because a name like that, singular, dignified, a little grand, was a kind of gift, the sort of name a child might carry through a playground with her head held high.
Hermione?
There's a small, sad irony in that.
Little pumpkin.
For all their care, the teasing came anyway, only never for her name.
Look at her.
It came in the end, for her mind.
She's bright.
They could not have known, watching her sleep in those first weeks, how sadly fitting the choice would prove, that their daughter would one day lie petrified within the walls of a castle they would never see, and come back from it. They knew only that she was theirs, and that she was, from the very first, watching the world with an attention that seemed too old for her.
Fascinating.
The strangeness came early, though for years no one had a word for it. Hermione Jean Granger was not, it must be said, an easy child to befriend. While other children her age were reading comic books or stories of wizards and enchanted kingdoms, Hermione was reading Plato and Dante and Jane Austen.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Her classmates found her exhausting. The girl who corrected the teacher, who finished the book first and explained it to everyone whether they wished it or not, who could no more let a wrong answer pass than hold her breath. She was lonely in the particular way of clever children, who learn early that being right and being liked are not the same thing, and choose, again and again, to be right. Books did not roll their eyes at her. Books did not leave her out of games. And in any case, she would tell herself, it was hardly her fault. Without her ever meaning it, books would slide from the highest shelf and drop neatly into her waiting hands, as though desperate to be read.
Come on, darling.
And whenever her mother, worried, tried to coax her out to the park,
Let's take a
or into dancing lessons, or some sport or other, well, things had a way of going wrong. Rather as the drawing room chandelier had gone wrong, one afternoon, shattering into 1,000 pieces on the carpet below.
What happened?
Small strangenesses her parents, frankly, were at a loss to explain. Then, in the summer of her 11th year, something happened. The kind of thing no one ever sees coming, that turns the whole course of a life over in a single afternoon. Magic came knocking, and for once not by owl. For a child raised entirely among Muggles, a letter alone was never thought enough. Someone had to come in person,
Please.
to sit in an unfamiliar front room
Come in.
and explain gently to bewildered parents and a wide-eyed girl that the world was larger and stranger than they had ever supposed, and that their daughter belonged to the hidden half of it. The witch who came that day was tall and dark and severe, with a tartan trim to her robes and a gaze that missed nothing.
Miss Granger.
Her name was Minerva McGonagall,
Good morning.
and for the young Hermione, she would remain a guiding presence for the rest of her life.
You're a witch,
The Grangers listened
Hermione.
and read the letter 3 times over.
Hogwarts School.
Witchcraft,
Witchcraft
wizardry,
and wizardry.
a school in Scotland whose name they could not say with a straight face. And their daughter, standing very still by the kitchen door, understood in a single bright instant every odd and unaccountable thing that had ever happened to her.
Brilliant.
She did not cry, and she did not laugh. She asked, in a small, steady voice, whether there were books she ought to read first. There were.
There are indeed.
By the time she boarded the train, she had read them all.
Of trolls, friendship, and blood.
My dear adventurers, today I bring you something that will interest you. 2 actually, and completely free, which I must say is rather rare even in the wizarding world. As you know, the Spellbook Chronicles is devoted to the exploration of wizarding knowledge in all its forms. And knowledge, as any respectable wizard will tell you, lives in books and tomes. Which is why I can wholeheartedly recommend a completely free month of Kindle Unlimited, a Muggle service that grants access to an extraordinary collection of titles. I am a parchment man personally, but I must admit this Muggle technology is remarkable, which means no books that bite or perforate your ears. Frankly, a considerable advantage. And while we're on the subject of Muggle conveniences, a free month of Amazon Prime. Fast deliveries, films, series, useful, I'm told, for those of you without access to Owl Post. You'll find both links in the description. 1 month completely free for both services. Using them costs you nothing extra and supports this channel directly. It is, my dear adventurers, the simplest way to keep this journey going. And for that, I truly thank you.
She arrived at Hogwarts the way she did everything. Early, prepared, and terrified it would not be enough. For her, the wizarding world was a foreign country, learned overnight from books. Every custom strange, every other student seeming to know 100 small things she had never been taught. So she did the only thing she knew how. She learned faster. She memorized her textbooks before term even began.
Miss Granger.
It is worth pausing on the wand that chose her in Diagon Alley. Vine wood, 10 3/4 inches. Dragon heartstring core.
Vinewood is red.
Vine is among the less common woods, said to seek out those who look, often without knowing it, for a purpose greater than themselves. It is not a wand for the merely clever. It waits for someone who will one day want to matter. The wand, perhaps, saw further than the girl did. When the sorting hat came down over her eyes, it paused. Few ever learned how nearly it sent her elsewhere, for Ravenclaw had been very close. There is a word among wizards for a student who keeps the hat deliberating far longer than usual, a hat stall. And McGonagall herself, the witch who had come to the Granger's door that summer, had been a true one in her day, held 5.5 minutes between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw. The very same choice, the hat now weighed above Hermione's head.
Hermione Granger?
A house of pure intellect would have suited the girl she was at 11. She would have been happy there, in a narrow sort of way. But the hat saw the other thing in her, perhaps the same thing the vine wood had seen. Behind that raised hand was a spine of iron, a need not merely to know what was right, but to do it, whatever it cost. And so it called out Gryffindor and sent her to the House of the Brave, a choice that puzzled her for a long time, because she did not yet think of herself as brave. It would take a mountain troll to change her mind. It happened on Halloween, in her first term. That morning, a boy named Ron Weasley had said, loudly and unkindly, that she was a nightmare with no friends. And the trouble was, he was not entirely wrong. She corrected the pronunciation of older students. She raised her hand for every question and could not understand, truly could not understand, why this did not make the other children love her. Even in her own dormitory, among the Gryffindor girls of her year, Lavender Brown, Parvati Patil, friendship was slow in coming. They were kind enough to her, but real friendship was another thing entirely, and she felt its absence keenly. Ron was in a very bad mood by the end of the class.
It's no wonder no one can stand her.
He said to Harry as they pushed their way into the crowded corridor.
She's a nightmare, honestly.
Someone knocked into Harry as they hurried past him. It was Hermione. Harry caught a glimpse of her face and was startled to see that she was in tears.
I think she heard you. So?
Said Ron, but he looked a bit uncomfortable.
She must have noticed she's got no friends.
And so that night, while the rest of the castle feasted, Hermione sat crying alone in the girls' bathroom, which was precisely where the mountain troll found her. 12 feet of muscle and stupidity. And Ron Weasley, with his friend Harry Potter, two boys who had every reason to leave her, who barely knew her, who had mocked her that very morning, came back for her instead. They saved her. And when a teacher demanded to know what 3 first years were doing locked in a bathroom with an unconscious troll, Hermione Granger, who had never told a lie to an adult in her life, looked Professor McGonagall in the eye and took the blame for all of it. It was the first genuinely reckless thing she had ever done. And though she would not have used the word, the first brave one. It bought her, for the price of a single lie, the 2 friends she would keep for life. There is a kind of person for whom the rules are everything, right up until the moment a friend needs them broken. That night, she learned what kind of person she was. The months that followed bound the 3 of them tighter, for they had stumbled onto a secret. Behind a locked door, guarded by a vast 3-headed dog, something was hidden in the castle, and the 3 of them spent the better part of the year working out what.
Philosopher's Stone.
It was the Philosopher's Stone, the fabled work of the alchemist Nicholas Flamel, which turned metal to gold and brewed the elixir of life, the secret of immortality itself. Someone inside the school meant to steal it.
Snake.
And so 3 11-year-olds, against all good sense, went down through a trapdoor to stop them. They passed the guardians the professors had set, each in turn, Ron winning them through a deadly game of giant chess, before a riddle of logic and poison brought them up short. That last one needed no magic at all, only logic. A row of bottles, a riddle in verse, and the patience to reason it through. It was the one kind of problem the wizarding world had never thought to teach, and Hermione solved it in minutes.
Of course.
There was potion enough for only one to go on into the dark. And Hermione, who had spent 11 years certain that being cleverest meant going first, did something that astonished her. She stayed behind because she knew, even then, that the last step was Harry's to take, and whatever waited at the bottom was his to face alone. Books and cleverness, she told him. There are more important things. She had never believed that before, but she was beginning to. Their courage, hers, Harry's, Ron's, was repaid that June with the House Cup itself. A handful of last-minute points that broke Slytherin's 7-year hold on it and handed Gryffindor the win at last. If her first year had taught her that she belonged, her second set out to tell her that she did not. For it was in her second year that Hermione first heard the word. A quarrel on the Quidditch pitch, a sneering pale boy named Draco Malfoy, and a single syllable hurled at her like a stone. Mudblood. The foulest name in the wizarding world for a witch or wizard born of non-magical parents. It means dirty blood. It means you do not belong here, and you never will. The older students nearby fell silent, and that silence told her more than the word itself. It was Ron who explained the rest, later, angrier than she had ever seen him, that there were old, proud families who fancied themselves the last pure blood left in Britain, who kept registers of their own kind, the so-called Sacred 28, and who looked on a Muggle-born witch, however gifted, as something soiled. Ron was so enraged on her behalf that he tried to curse Malfoy on the spot. His battered old wand backfired, and he spent the next hour belching slugs into the grass. It was absurd. It was also very nearly the kindest thing anyone at that school had yet done for her. She would come to know that word well enough in the years ahead. For now she lifted her chin, pretended it had not landed, and went back to the library, where the world was orderly, and a fact was a fact, regardless of whose blood ran behind the eyes that read it. And it was in that library, that same year, that she did the thing that mattered most. While the castle whispered of the Chamber of Secrets, and of the monster hidden somewhere within it, and students were found frozen mid-step, grey and rigid as marble, it was Hermione who found the answer. A page torn from a book, a single word, basilisk, and beside it, in her own hand, the means by which the creature killed. She worked it out alone, ahead of every teacher in the school. And then, walking the corridors with a small mirror held up before her, watching each corner so the monster's gaze could not catch her unguarded, it caught her anyway. They found her where she had fallen, the mirror still in her hand, her body cold and grey and rigid, still as carved stone, petrified, held fast like the queen in the play her parents had loved, not truly turned to stone, but locked cold and motionless as any statue, beyond breath and time. For weeks she lay in the hospital wing, while her friends, armed with the clue still clutched in her fingers, went down into the dark and finished what she had begun. The brightest mind in the school, and in the end, her greatest gift to them was not a spell at all. It was a piece of paper and the courage to have gone looking. The monster was slain, and Voldemort's design undone once more, thanks to the courage of the three of them. Already, in only their second year, Harry, Ron, and Hermione had become something rare, a force nothing in that castle could stand against. And when the cure was ready at last, the basilisk's hold on her loosened and let go. Color returned to her. She breathed. She woke and ran the length of the great hall to throw her arms around her friends, warm and living, and herself again.
Of time, elves, and Yule.
Quentin, that bloody owl's trashed half the studio.
Fizbert has just delivered an urgent communication from the Ministry of Magic, with his usual complete lack of grace. The Muggle HBO adaptation of the most important wizarding events is approaching. Every wizard, witch, muggle, and squib must be prepared. See to it with Spellbuzz, my dear colleague Francesca Williams' show. right here on this channel.
Welcome, wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs.
She's been covering every update, every theory, every casting announcement on the HBO series with a dedication that I, as a wizard, can only deeply respect. Go watch her, go support her, something big is coming, and she will make sure you are ready for it. Fizbert has done his part, now do yours.
That feathery menace.
By her third year, Hermione wanted, quite literally, to be in two places at once. The trouble was the timetable.
Let's see.
She had signed up for everything Hogwarts offered a third year. Arithmancy and ancient runes, care of magical creatures, Muggle studies, even divination, a subject she would soon come to despise, only to discover, to her horror, that several of them met at the very same hour.
It's not fair.
To most students, this would have been a small mercy, one fewer class to sit through. To Hermione, it was closer to grief.
Professor McGonagall?
The thought of a subject left unlearned, of knowledge on a shelf she was forbidden to reach, was nearly more than she could bear.
Yes, Miss Granger?
And so Professor McGonagall did an extraordinary thing. She wrote to the Ministry of Magic,
Dear Minister.
vouched for a 13-year-old girl by name, and secured for her one of the rarest and most dangerous instruments in the wizarding world, a time turner.
Time turner.
A delicate golden hourglass, worn on a chain at the neck, that could fold an hour back upon itself and let its wearer live the same day twice. Privately, Hermione thought it a little mad. Not the studying, which she would gladly have done around the clock, but the trust. She understood, better than the grown-ups seemed to, what such a thing could do in careless hands. How a single turn too many might tear a hole in the order of things. That the ministry would place that power with a child, on one teacher's word, struck her as reckless in the extreme. She took it anyway. Of course she did. And then she took every subject the school offered and paid for it. Slept badly, ate worse, snapped at her friends, and would not, for anything, give up a single class. That same year, away from her studies, Hermione acquired a cat. A bandy-legged ginger half-Kneasel named Crookshanks, squash-faced and supremely unbothered by anyone's opinion of him. Half-Kneasels have an instinct for what is not what it seems, and Crookshanks took an immediate, relentless dislike to Ron's old pet rat, Scabbers, hunting the wretched creature at every turn until it became one more thing for Ron and Hermione to quarrel over. But the cat, as it would turn out, had been right all along. There was something very wrong with that rat indeed. The time turner's true importance that year, however, had nothing to do with lessons. The same stolen hours that let her sit two classes at once would, before the year was out, be turned to something far graver, the saving of two innocent lives. The first belonged to a hippogriff named Buckbeak, condemned to death over a single scratch, the work of Draco Malfoy's wounded pride, and his father, Lucius's quiet pull at the ministry.
Buckbeak.
Hermione waged a long, careful campaign to save
Must be
him,
saved.
drowning herself in case law and precedent, building an appeal no 13-year-old should have been able to build. She would not stand by and let an innocent creature be killed for a lie. They lost the appeal anyway, and then, in a single impossible night, she and Harry saved Buckbeak after all, and a second life with him, an innocent man, condemned without trial, snatched back from a fate far worse than death. And the year ended, fittingly, on a moment of pure unscholarly satisfaction. Draco Malfoy, the boy of the cruel word, had grown bolder in his contempt, until one afternoon, Hermione Granger, top of every class, and the very model of restraint, drew back her fist and struck him full in the face. That felt good, she said, shaking out her hand. She was never proud of losing her temper, but there was a truth in that punch. Her cleverness had always been a kind of armor, a way of meeting the world from a safe distance through the pages of a book. The girl who hit Malfoy was hiding behind nothing at all. She was simply, furiously present, and the world, she was learning, sometimes asked for exactly that.
That felt good.
The following year gave her cause to think harder than ever about justice. and about how often the wizarding world mistook the way things had always been done for the way things ought to be. It began with a simple question. Who cooked the vast banquets that appeared every day in the Great Hall? Who scrubbed the 100 pots, lit the 1,000 fires, laundered the robes of a castle full of students? The answer, when she found it, appalled her. House elves. Hundreds of them, laboring unseen in the kitchens beneath her feet. A whole people bound in servitude and magicked over long centuries into believing their own chains a kindness.
It's slavery.
There was a bitter irony in it, one Hermione herself may never have known. It had been Helga Hufflepuff, at the very founding of the school, who first brought the elves into those kitchens, not to enslave them, but to shelter them, to give a hunted, gentle people a warm and protected place in the world. 1,000 years had quietly turned one witch's mercy into something Hermione could see only as a cruelty everyone had agreed to call tradition. And when she said as much, that was exactly the word they gave her back.
They like it that way. Don't interfere. It's tradition.
So she founded a society to free them, the Society for the Promotion of Elvish Welfare, which, to the lasting delight of her friends, shortened to SPEW.
SPEW.
Said Hermione hotly.
I was going to put stop the outrageous abuse of our fellow magical creatures and campaign for a change in their legal status, but it wouldn't fit. So that's the heading of our manifesto.
She made badges nobody wanted to wear. Her friends teased her. The elves themselves were often offended, and by every visible measure, the thing failed. But the witch, who would one day reshape the wizarding world, was already there, bound to a cause that, however ridiculous it looked to the world that day, she herself would never forget. That same year, Hogwarts played host to the Triwizard Tournament, an ancient and dangerous contest between three great schools of magic, long discontinued and newly revived. From Durmstrang, far to the north, came its champion, Victor Krum, a world-famous Quidditch player sought after by half the castle. And Krum, of all people, looked past the cleverest girl in the room and saw, simply, a girl.
Dance with me.
He asked her to the Yule ball, the grand midwinter dance the whole castle had been talking of for weeks. For one evening, Hermione set down the books and came down the great staircase transformed, and the boys, who had never once looked twice, were struck silent. Part of that change was older than the evening itself. Earlier in the year, a curse gone astray had set her front teeth growing, and in the hospital wing afterward, she had quietly let them be shrunk a touch past their original size. A small, human vanity, and a quiet irony for the daughter of two dentists who had always wanted her in braces. What stayed with her afterward was not the dress, nor the dancing, but the simple fact that Krum had liked her for who she truly was. Her friend, Ron Weasley, who had asked her himself, too late, and only as a last resort, spent the whole evening watching her dance with another boy and discovering, to his own bewilderment, that he minded, and minded badly. They quarreled that night, bitterly, over nothing and everything at once. Neither of them yet understood what the quarrel was really about, but that was the night it began between them. The slow, stubborn, years-long business of two people falling in love without admitting it. And then, at the very end of that year, the tournament turned to horror. Cedric Diggory, Hogwarts champion alongside Harry, a brave and loyal Hufflepuff, was killed in the space of a heartbeat by a servant of a dark wizard most of the wizarding world still insisted was long dead. For Lord Voldemort had returned, risen again into a body of his own, and Harry had escaped him by the narrowest of margins, coming back clutching Cedric's body and a truth nobody wished to hear. The long peace was over, and Hermione, 15 now with that cold, clear mind of hers, understood, before almost anyone, exactly what was coming.
Of Pink, Armies, and the Coming Dark.
Oh, my valiant adventurers, I bring you news that shines brighter than any Loomis. 3 enchanted tiers: Curious Wanderer, Enchanted Explorer, and Master Adventurer. The room of requirement? Nothing but a broom cupboard in comparison. With us, you'll gain early access to every episode, a secret Discord server to keep you ahead of everyone else, and that's not all. Priority replies to your comments, a direct channel to help you choose new content together, and even exclusive wallpapers taken from each episode. And it doesn't stop there. For the bravest among you, extra videos with my director's notes and reflections on the episodes already released. Because, let's be honest, you can never get enough of your dashing wizard adventurer, Quentin Pettigrew. Click join below for all the details. Joining the Spellbook family is a small gesture that supports our journey and allows us to bring content truly worthy of our audience. So thank you sincerely from the bottom of our hearts for being here. And you muggles listening in, I beg you tell me, what on Merlin's beard is a Discord server supposed to be?
And so the 5th year came. With Voldemort's return, the Ministry of Magic, terrified of what it could not control, chose to call it a lie, and installed at Hogwarts one of its own. Her name was Dolores Umbridge, and she came as the new teacher of defense against the dark arts. Swathed in pink, soft-spoken, her office aflutter with simpering kitten plates, a girlish smile fixed forever on her face. It was a costume, and a thin one. Her task was to see that the students of Hogwarts learned nothing in the 1 year they would need it most. She forbade them even to raise a wand in her lessons. And when that was not control enough, she had herself made High Inquisitor of the school, and at last its headmistress, ruling by decree and by fear. To Hermione, this was an outrage with a particular flavor. Not merely wicked, but wrong. A deliberate teaching of ignorance. The exact inversion of everything she believed a school was for. So she built an army out of school children. It was her idea, worth saying plainly, because it is so often forgotten. Dumbledore's army. The secret circle that learned to fight in defiance of the Ministry was Hermione's design. She gathered them, she found the room, and she protected them with a piece of magic so elegant, it deserves to be remembered alongside any spell cast in that war. She charmed a set of ordinary coins so that the leaders, when changed, would warm and alter every other coin at once, summoning the whole company in secret. It is advanced work, a protean charm, tested at the very highest levels, done by a 16-year-old to keep her friends safe. The marks at the top of the class had never been the point. This was what the marks had been for.
Yes.
She protected the army another way too, and this one was darker. The parchment they all signed, she had jinxed, so that any traitor would carry the word sneak across their face in cruel, lasting marks. And when a girl did betray them, the jinx did precisely what Hermione had built it to do. The kindest of the 3 friends, the one who founded charities for the downtrodden, was also entirely capable of a quiet, surgical ruthlessness in defense of the people she loved. She did not punch you in the face. She thought 3 moves ahead and left a mark that did not fade. The year ended in blood, far from the safety of the school, in the Department of Mysteries, the most secret and shadowed level of the whole Ministry of Magic, where unspeakable things are studied behind locked doors, prophecy and time and death itself. Harry had been lured there by a vision, a trap baited with someone he loved, and 6 children against every sensible odd went down into the dark to save a life. What met them there was the full force of Voldemort's followers. Mark her courage then. She had seen the danger more clearly than any of them, had begged Harry to be sure it was not a trap before he set out.
Are you sure?
It was a trap, and once that was plain, she went anyway, and fought as hard as anyone on that cold marble floor. Bravery in her blazed brighter with every passing day. A curse caught her there, a slash of silent dark fire across the chest that very nearly ended her on the spot and left a scar she would carry always. She lived, but the war was no longer a thing in books. It had touched her, written itself into her skin.
My dear,
And she understood at last that cleverness alone would not be enough to keep any of them safe.
is something else.
The 6th year was quieter, and somehow harder. The dark was rising in the world outside, and within the castle, Hermione fought a smaller, more wretched battle, with her own heart. The jealousy at the ball had a name now, and the name was Ron. And watching him fall into the arms of another girl taught the brightest witch of her age the one subject she could not study her way through. There is no book for it. She, who had an answer for everything, found she had none for this. The heart, she was learning, keeps its own counsel, and all the cleverness in the world is no shield against the ache of caring for someone who does not yet know to care for you. She told no one how much it hurt. She carried it the way she carried everything, silently, completely, and alone. But her heartache was a small thing beside what was coming. The dark she had felt gathering all year did not stay outside the castle walls. One night, it came in. Death Eaters breached Hogwarts itself, let in through a hidden way Draco Malfoy had spent the whole year secretly preparing, and slipped into the one place that had always meant safety. The school fought back. Members of the Order of the Phoenix, the secret brotherhood Dumbledore had founded in the First War and the Second, to stand against Voldemort when the Ministry would not, battled through the corridors alongside the children of Dumbledore's army, Hermione among them. But higher up, on the Astronomy Tower, something happened that no defense could have stopped. Albus Dumbledore, the greatest wizard of the age, the one man Voldemort had ever truly feared, was killed. And the hand that struck him down belonged to Severus Snape, their teacher, a man Dumbledore had trusted above almost any other, a member of the Order itself. To everyone who loved the old headmaster, it looked like the blackest betrayal imaginable. The truth of it would not come out for a long time yet, but that night there was only the horror, the grief, and a castle that would never again feel wholly safe. They buried Dumbledore by the lake, in white marble, with the whole school in mourning. And in the sorrow of those days, a decision quietly hardened in the three of them. They would not be coming back in the autumn. There would be no 7th year, no more lessons, no examinations, no ordinary life. Dumbledore had left Harry a secret task that might end the war. And where Harry went, Hermione and Ron were going too.
We're coming with you.
It was, though none of them said it aloud, the end of their childhood.
Of sacrifice, bards, and scars.
Harry,
Another summer passed.
Ron,
Hermione knew before any of them what the war would demand.
war is coming.
She knew they would have to leave school, leave safety, leave everyone, and walk out into a country falling under the shadow of a wizard who hunted Muggle-borns like her for sport. And she knew, with the awful clarity that had always been both her gift and her burden, that her parents, two gentle dentists in a quiet English town, would be the easiest way to break her. Hostages waiting to happen. One evening, in the comfortable house where she had grown up strange and lonely and loved, Hermione Granger raised her wand to the two people who had raised her, and with a charm of terrible precision unmade herself from their memory.
I'm sorry.
She did not simply hide. She rewrote them. She gave them new names. Wendell and Monica Wilkins, a lifelong dream of moving to Australia, and a deep, contented certainty that they had never wanted children at all. She stood in the doorway of her own childhood and watched her mother and father look back at her with pleasant, polite, total incomprehension. Strangers in the house where she was born. She had told them it was reversible, that she would find them when it was over and give them back. She believed it, but she did it, not knowing whether she would survive to keep the promise. What Dumbledore had left Harry was a hunt. Before his death, the old headmaster had uncovered Voldemort's darkest secret, that the Dark Lord had torn his own soul into pieces and hidden each fragment inside an object. A ring, a locket, a cup, a lost diadem, and others besides, so that as long as a single one survived, he could not die. These were his Horcruxes. Find them all, destroy them all, and Voldemort would at last be mortal. Leave even one, and he could not be killed. That was the task Dumbledore had bequeathed to 3 teenagers, to track down the scattered pieces of a murderer's soul, with no map and no guide, while the whole of his power hunted them in turn. He had left them a few small things to help. Strange bequests written into his will. To Ron, a deluminator that could draw the light out of the world and give it back. To Harry, the first snitch he had ever caught with a secret sealed inside. And to Hermione, fittingly, perfectly, a book. An old volume of wizarding fairy tales. The Tales of Beedle the Bard. It seemed the humblest of the 3 gifts. It would prove the most important of all, for hidden in its pages was the key to a mystery older than Voldemort himself. The legend of the Deathly Hallows. And it would fall to Hermione, the girl who had always found her answers in books, to read that legend right.
3 brothers.
There is a quiet symmetry in it, for anyone who remembers how this story began, that the bookish daughter of 2 Shakespeare-loving dentists should be handed, of all the books in the world, the work of Beedle the Bard. The very name some wizards still whisper was Shakespeare's own. And so, they left. The months that followed were cold and hungry and frightened. 3 teenagers in a tent, moving from one hiding place to the next across an emptied country, hunting the broken pieces of a dark soul, often quarreling, often despairing. Through all of it, it was Hermione who knew the spells that hid them. Hermione who carried the food and the books and the answers in a small beaded bag, into which she had packed everything 3 fugitives could ever need. Hermione, who held the little fellowship together when the boys' courage faltered.
Come on, lads.
She had packed the bag.
Let's move.
In the end, she was the one who packed all of them, kept them alive, kept them moving, kept them human. Then they were caught and taken to a place whose name still chills the wizarding world, Malfoy Manor. There, on the drawing room floor of that beautiful, cruel house, Bellatrix Lestrange, the most savage of all Voldemort's servants, held Hermione down and tortured her, demanding answers, screaming the old word over and over, mudblood, mudblood. And when screaming was not enough, she took a cursed blade and carved that word into the flesh of Hermione's arm, so that the slur she had first heard at 13 years old was written into her body in letters that would never, ever fade. But here is the thing about Hermione Granger. She survived that room. She escaped it. She carried that scar, that word on her arm, ever after. They wrote mudblood into her flesh, and she would spend the rest of her life proving what that blood could do. She did not break in that house. She lied to Bellatrix through her own torture, a lie that may well have saved the war. And when the final battle came to Hogwarts, she was there, in the thick of it. And it was there, amid the fighting, that Ron Weasley, of all people, stopped to say that someone ought to warn the house elves, that they too deserved the choice to fight or to flee, rather than die forgotten in the kitchens below. The boy who had teased her for years about exactly this had, at last, made it his own. And Hermione dropped what she was holding and kissed him. There is something perfect in that. The cause for which she had always been mocked was the very thing that finally won her the heart of the person she had loved all along.
The cup.
She destroyed a piece of Voldemort's soul with her own hands that night, with a fang from the very basilisk, whose name she had once worked out alone in a library. And when the dawn came, and the Dark Lord lay dead at last, Hermione Granger was 18 years old. The war was over, and she had survived all of it, while somewhere on the far side of the world, 2 dentists were living a borrowed life under borrowed names, waiting, without knowing they were waiting, for a daughter to come and give them back themselves.
Of family, laws, and future.
She kept her promise. Before anything else, before the celebrations, before rest, before the rebuilding of her own life, Hermione traveled to Australia, found Mr. and Mrs. Wilkins, living a pleasant, invented life beneath a foreign sun,
Darling.
and gave them back their names, their memories,
Hermione.
and their Hermione.
Where are we?
Unlike Ron and Harry, by now already set on careers as Aurors, she chose to return to Hogwarts, to sit the examinations the war had stolen. Not by then, out of any need to prove herself, but because finishing what she had started was simply who she was. And because she believed, more than ever, that the world is rebuilt by people willing to do the unglamorous work properly.
Granger.
She earned her qualifications.
Welcome.
And then she walked into the Ministry of Magic, the very institution that had once called the truth a lie, and set about changing it from the inside. She began where her heart had always been, in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, where she fought, now with real power behind her, to better the lives of House Elves and the other peoples the wizarding world had spent centuries pretending not to see. The badges of a teasing schoolgirl had become policy. The cause everyone had laughed at had become law. Then she moved to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. And there, she did the work her whole life had been pointing toward, without her quite knowing it.
Blood purity
She took the old laws,
is no longer
the ones built on blood,
what matter.
the ones that held some witches and wizards worth more than others by the mere accident of their birth, and dismantled them, statute by statute, until the thing Draco Malfoy had spat at her on a Quidditch pitch, the thing Bellatrix Lestrange had carved into her arm, was no longer written anywhere in the laws of her world. She married, of course, Ron Weasley, the boy who had once called her a nightmare with no friends, and then come back through a castle to save her from a troll.
What are they up to?
They had 2 children, Rose and Hugo, and she watched them go off to Hogwarts in their turn, and worried, and corrected their pronunciation, and loved them ferociously.
It's Leviosa.
And in the fullness of time, the brightest witch of her age became Minister for Magic. The Muggle-born girl, who had learned an entire world overnight from books, rose to lead that world entire.
Dear Headmaster
Not because she was the cleverest person in the room, though she very nearly always was, but because she had spent her whole life pointing that cleverness at the things that were wrong, and refusing year after year to look away, with the courage of a true Gryffindor. Remus Lupin, a good man and a fine teacher,
Granger.
once called her
The
the brightest witch of her age.
Her age.
And perhaps this story has shown that he was not wrong at all.
And so, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs, the story of Hermione Granger reminds us that true greatness is not measured merely by talent or intellect, but by courage, compassion, and the determination to stand for what is right, even when standing alone. Long live Spew! Free the House Elves! My dear Hermione, Quentin Pendergast stands with you. I bid you farewell, my dear adventurers. I am, as always, your charming wizard Quentin Pendergast, ever ready to guide you once more through the wonders, legends, and mysteries of the wizarding world. Until the next dazzling episode.